right, I'll go ahead and do your intro.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Bryant Schaefer is with Signet Jewelers. He is a passionate, resilient professional working in the business continuity and risk management field for the past 7 years within the retail industry. Through that time, Bryant has gained experience in business continuity planning, incident management, system implementation, risk management, while earning his CBCP. Currently, Bryant is the manager of enterprise risk management and business continuity planning at Signet Jewelers, the world's largest retailer of diamond jewelry and the parent company of brands you know as Kay, Zales, Jared, Piercing Goda, Diamonds Direct, and James Allen. At Signet, Bryant is the program manager for Signet's business continuity program, while also managing various enterprise level risk and compliance program projects to drive continuity and resiliency discussions throughout the company. Please join me in welcoming Bryant.
So I went with putting the microphone on because I don't like standing in one place. I'm not that kind of guy. So yeah, thanks for having me speak this morning. I wanted to talk about getting a program back on the right path. So as I was putting this all together, I started thinking about, how do I want to present this? How do I want to, discuss my journey with Signet? And I figured this was a good way to do it. As we all know, business continuity is a little bit of a journey. I remember when I interviewed at Signet, the question was posed to me, so when do you think you'll be finished? And I said, that's not how any of this works. Right? It is a journey. It's a lot of twists and turns. I'm a travel kind of guy. I love an adventure. I love getting out into nature, going new places, seeing new things. Disney World is totally not my style. Good, nobody threw anything at me. There's some passionate Disney people out there. My sister is one of them. She would have thrown something. But I love a good adventure. So I figured this was a good way to discuss it. In fact, all the pictures you'll see, they're all mine, right? Right. So I figured worst case scenario, you can look at the picture and dream of being out there and not in a room, right? But so that's what I wanted to talk to you about is my journey with Signet and basically how that all happened as once I joined Signet. In the little write-up or the description, I posed the question, if you could redo your business continuity program, or if you could start from scratch, knowing what you know now, what changes would you make? It's a good question. And actually, I kind of want to pose it if this thing works. That's all right. Here we go. Might have, that's okay. I gotta go over there, it's fine. I want to pose it like this. This is the main question. Yeah, that's okay. It's all right. I can wander around. In which state is your program? Now, some of you might have read that as, well, it's auditable, or we follow ISO 22301, or we do annual testing and annual updates. No, that is not the question. It's in which state is your program? In all of my travels, I have learned that there are exactly two kinds of states. The first kind of state is, wow, I can't wait to get to Maine. New Hampshire is beautiful this time of year, right? There are people who go to California just to drive a whole bunch of hours. The mountains of Colorado are amazing. Then there's the other kind of state, and you all know which one I'm talking about. I want full class participation. I'm going to bring back horrible childhood memories. When I point to you, I want everybody to say the state they're thinking of. Oh my God, get me out of this car, Mom and Dad. I can't wait until we're done driving through. Nebraska, yes. Iowa, Kansas, Texas, that's a big one, right? So I want you to keep that in mind, right? Throughout while I'm talking is, which state is your program in? Because remember, you are the driver of that car. You get paid to drive the program, right? there are all your business owners, there's whoever you're doing the testing with, there's the people sitting in the meetings. What state do they feel like they're driving in? Are they driving through a beautiful New Hampshire fall day? Or are they stuck in eastern Wyoming? I've been there, you're praying for a tree. Right? So that's the question is, what state is your program in right now? It worked. Look at that. So did anybody go to DRJ Fall? Anyone? Wow, this is awesome. New slide, right? So I totally stole this slide from Shane Matthews, Scott Baldwin from DRJ Fall. They had a great general presentation about a business continuity reboot cycle. Basically, they were trying to say, hey, what do you do to make a business continuity program that lasts? Even after you're gone, or just get out of that cycle of, okay, well, now we're going to change over the business continuity system, or business continuity program again, and get new people in, or a new system, or a new process, right? How do you build something that's sustainable? And their end result was, spoiler alert, engagement, right? But at Signet, we had a little bit of the same kind of a thing, right? So in 2015 and before, there's actually a very robust business continuity program at Signet, very detailed. But there were organizational changes, budget cuts, and business continuity program was inevitably cut around 2015. 2016, they brought in a consulting company to go through and build out business continuity plans, do BIAs throughout the company. But then it was just kind of like, that was it. There was nothing to continue. It brought in consultants, they finished it, they answered the question, when is this going to be finished, right? And then that was it. 2017 went by, 2018 now, in the summer, the senior director of enterprise risk management said, I've identified a risk. We don't have a business continuity program, right? And you know what they said? Congratulations, sold, it's yours, right? So now that gets us to here, and I'm going to pretend like I was at DRJ Fall. Hey, look, it's Signet. Anyway, that was it, right? I leaned to the person next to me. I said, that's our company. See where it says budget support? That's my salary, right? So I knew I had to break this cycle. I knew I had to get out of this. And so what do you do to break this? So first I had to figure out where a program was and where a program had been. So a little bit about that. Where was the program? 50-page plans. This goes to actually something that Connie was talking about earlier, was the concept of 1,000-page plan, right? Who's going to use that? And so not all of the plans were 50 pages long, but they were long. And some of them were 50, 60 pages. And so they were extremely detailed. They had a ton of information in it. Think of a business continuity question that you could get answered by one of your business owners. It was in there. There were spreadsheets of every single person in HR and what their skill set was and who they were cross-trained with. And person A was cross-trained with B, C, and D, and they had these skill sets. And you knew that after 3 hours, they needed 3 calculators, they had 5 VPs, 4 managers, whatever it was. Everything was in there. But what happened? There was no true engagement, right? They were burnt out. Everybody, if I hear something once, I say, okay, I'll take it with a grain of salt. If I hear something twice, I say, well, maybe it's a coincidence. 3 times, it's a pattern. If I can't count anymore how many times I've heard after I did a meeting, wait, that's it? That means it's a problem, right? I kept hearing after meetings, are we gonna have to meet again, or is that all you're gonna ask me? Like, where are all the spreadsheets? Do I have to log into a system? Right? That was all of the questions that I was getting. The problem was that they were, again, getting burnt out. And the problem that I heard the most was, I have been dreading this meeting on my calendar all week. And if I knew it was going to be like this, I wouldn't have worried so much, because it was a 3-4 hour long business continuity meeting every time they had to update their plans. Basically, they didn't know it, but they had been driving all the way through Nebraska the entire time. And then they turned around and drove through Kansas just for the hell of it. So, right? So that's where the program was. And so we needed to change that. And I knew that was the biggest challenge. But what was I left with? Outdated documents and an entirely different company. When I say entirely different company, I mean even down to the name. It used to be Sterling Jewelers, not Signet Jewelers. They bought Zales, they bought Piercing Pagoda, they bought 2 companies in Canada, an online e-tailer jeweler, and built out a digital department, and a factory in Botswana. That's all. So you might as well have taken those 50-page documents off the shelf, blown them off, and then burnt them. That was where I was basically coming into. And of course, if you don't have a department, you're not going to be paying for business continuity software, a whole system. Nobody could even log in to access the old plans. They were all just PDFs on a shared drive at a certain point, right? So it was basically like a full reset. But everybody, the good thing was that I had knowledge and awareness of BCP. They hated it, but they knew what it was, right? They remembered sitting in all the meetings. They remembered what it's all about. So I wasn't really truly starting from scratch. Everybody knew what it was. They just didn't want to see the meeting on their schedule. We had high level buy-in, obviously the most important thing, right? It was an enterprise level risk. It was identified as a risk committee initiative, which is awesome. And then support and cooperation. This is what I will say about the people at Signet. They are great to work with. They are collaborative. If you have a project, they will drop everything to help you to see it through. Everybody works as a team. So that I knew that was a strength of my company. So I used that, right? So as a side note, find whatever strength, there's plenty of weaknesses, but find whatever strength your company has and use it to your advantage when you're building out your program. So I needed to figure out where I needed to go. So I knew I needed a culture change. I couldn't go into a meeting every year to update plans if everybody didn't want to go to that meeting in the first place, and if they didn't think that it was valued, right? So my background's a little bit different. I didn't fall into business continuity because I was an IT person or I was somewhere in the business and they're like, oh, this is yours now. Kind of like they did to my director. I actually have a sales background, right? So I was out there meeting with clients and trying to get sales. And I knew that if I didn't provide value in a meeting, or if I didn't provide some kind of value add as far as just an overall product, that, I wasn't going to make a sale and I wasn't going to be able to have a salary, right? So I kind of had to approach it like that, right? No homework unless absolutely necessary. I had to say goodbye to the days of them building out all these spreadsheets and having all this homework and all this extracurricular activity for it to sit on a shelf. I needed to know what gave us the best foundation, what pieces we could add later on. But what I didn't want to do is try and implement everything all at once. I knew it was going to go horribly, and it was going to fight the top two, right? It was going to work against it. I had to be able to be flexible on, okay, you know what? We don't have to get everything all at once. I can add that year 2. I can add that question. I can add that year 3. We'll figure it out later. And if something changes, that's fine. But most importantly, what will people use? And what data will people want? What are people not only going to use for themselves, what are they going to be coming to me and asking me for? Is it going to be information about work from home? That actually happened, COVID, right? Is it going to be just other, is it going to be, hey, what are our top priorities in the business, right? So I had to think through those things of what are people going to want the most? So then from there, start building out the program. So some of these are more functional in nature. Some of these are more, baseline things. And some of these are more of the cultural type things. But first, I made sure to ensure all of our program documents were in place, give us a good foundation. I made sure there was a policy document that basically put it on everybody else to recover. I knew that I was a one-man army in this. I was the program manager, and that's about it, right? So I made sure in our policy document, I said, hey, it's up to the business to recover. I will help you build a plan. I will get you there, but it's on you, right? And then just overall ensure the structure and the buy-in with that document. From there, we built out a pilot program. We wanted to test out and make sure that our program end to end was going to actually work out. And so we picked actually our supply chain organization. We risk ranked it. We said, okay, which organizations do we really need to start with? We found a really good executive sponsor. He helped us out. And so we started with our supply chain organization. At that time, Signet looked a lot different than it did today, even 4 years ago, right? Our supply chain organization at the time, we didn't have almost like a just-in-time kind of distribution network, and like where a store could ship to another store, or if an e-commerce order came in, a store could just say, you know what, that's right, we'll ship it to the customer. That wasn't there. It was all out of our Akron distribution center. So anything that came in for Jared, sales, Piercing Pagoda, anything, it all got shipped out of Akron. So that was our biggest risk in the company, and that's where we started with. But we built out the VIAs, built out the plans, tested, made sure the process was working. Next step, I wanted to make sure that I got a system or a tool that I could use and be able to be an administrator for, and make changes in the background, right? I didn't want to have to constantly go anytime I wanted to make just even the slightest change. I didn't want to have to go and have to put in a support ticket and wait on it. I wanted to be able to do it on the fly if I needed to 10 minutes before a meeting, right? It had to be able to be scalable throughout the organization. If I wanted to add users later or have people log in later, I wanted to be able to do that. Right now, and still to this day, I do not have users logging into the system. I am updating on the fly in the meetings. And as changes happen, I can update it later. I'll do it via Word documents. I don't care, but I am not going to concurrently try and be teaching users how to log into a system and dealing with system issues and everything like that, and also trying to build out these documents. Again, that also goes back to the culture piece of no homework for them, right? If I'm saying, hey, you update the system all on your own with no real help or just good luck, right? That's not what I'm in the business of. I'm not in the business of giving homework. And then it also had to include enterprise risk management, because that's the other part of my job. And that's the other part of my group's job. So we basically were able to combine business continuity and our enterprise risk management system just as a non-sponsored pitch. We ended up going with Fusion. And really it was that piece of being able to update the system myself, just because it's based on Salesforce. I could just go in and make changes, right? So we got that in place. And then another top priority for me was establishing an incident response team. They changed the name on me to Global Incident Response Team. Everybody just started calling it that. And then everybody uses acronyms. So then it became the GERT team. And really, we couldn't like call it something else. So yeah, now it sounds like everybody has like a medical condition. Just word to the wise, be careful with your acronyms and what you name things. That was not my choice, but it is what it is. But anyway, so we established an incident command team, and we got it in time before COVID and got it rolled out in time before COVID happened. Thank goodness. But what that did is that established our network within the business, whether we intended to or not. Personally, I intended to, but you found out who your champions were real quick, right? If you had somebody on that team that then just didn't show up to the meetings, well, then you know who your champion is and isn't, right? And the people who are the most participatory in that meeting and the people who care the most, that's probably going to be your highest risk areas, right? Because that means something to them. That's real dollars and cents to them. So we found out our champion network and who we could go to real quick. So then from a more of a cultural type thing, I call it make it make sense, right? So we had a strong enterprise risk management group and function in our company already. And they were used to enterprise risk discussions. Remember, all this whole business continuity thing, it all came up because somebody in enterprise risk management said, I identified a risk and you need to fix it. Okay, great. So I tied business continuity to that. I brought in the director of enterprise risk management to concurrently run meetings, right? He knew all of the top enterprise risks in the company. He knew what was going on. And if something was a top initiative in the company or a top risk in the company, he could tie our business continuity discussions in that meeting. So it made people say, oh, now I know why Bryant's asking these questions, or, oh, that makes sense to me of why he's needing this information. And we ended up helping each other. And so to this day, for meetings that I know that something's going on behind the scenes, I'll still bring him in and say, hey, let's do this together because I think we can ask concurrent questions. But they were used to having those risk discussions. It was tied to a strong culture. Another thing, simplifying requests. So again, I hate to keep beating a dead horse here, but no homework, right? Who didn't love the teacher that was like that? My 7-year-old daughter has that right now in 2nd grade, literally no homework. She doesn't even take a book bag to school. I'm like, where was that? Anyway, but simplify requests, make it easy on the end users. 30-minute meetings. That's my standard. Now, if I see somebody's calendar and they have a bunch of open time, I realize that they're not 8 to 5 all day, booked solid, and I'm just fighting for it. If there's a big gap and I know that their process is easy enough to document within an hour and I can just be like, all right, we're done, that's where I'll make an exception to this. Otherwise, 30-minute meetings. That's where people are saying, wait, that's it? Yeah, well, I've got some follow-up questions. We meet for like 15 minutes next Tuesday. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. This is the best meeting I had all day. That's what I want to hear. No logging into systems, no homework. I have a preset like application template. If I start talking to IT folks or our digital group, customer care uses a ton of applications that I'm needing to document. That is the time where I will say, okay, we can either do this in a meeting. I don't mind documenting it for you. But if you don't even know the answers and your team would work better collaboratively, that's fine. I will break the no homework rule. But I have it all set up in a template for them. And I have an export from our IT group, from our CMDB of all of our applications. And I can filter by the ones customer care uses. So sometimes I'll even just throw those in there. and say, okay, here's what I think it's all for. Here's what I think you use. If you don't use it, cross it out. That's fine. But here's a starting point for you. All your times are in a drop down little box, right? All your RTO times, as far as like a maximum tolerable downtime or an RTO. I try and build it out for them as much as possible before I even send it to them. I show other plans. So we have, like I said, we have Jared, Kay, Zales, Piercing Pagoda, right? How many times can you build the exact same plan, but you have to do it, right? So I will bring up somebody else's plan and I say, does this look right? They'll go, yep, that's everything I would have said. All right, great. I'll clone it. Can we customize just like a line or two? That's fine. But honestly, all those plans should be working in conjunction with each other. They all should have the same answer, right? Jared shouldn't be doing a totally separate thing from Kay, or Zales shouldn't be doing a different thing from Kay when they're literally across. You stand in a Kay and you see a Zales, right? They shouldn't be having that different of a plan. So I at least give them a template, and I just don't overcomplicate it. I guide where possible. I talked about using the export of the CMDB just to assist in meetings. And then I borrow from pre-written steps. I'll show that on the next slide. But basically, I just try and build out a pre-written thing. Like if somebody says, hey, I've been working from home for a while, like, what, really need to say, hey, in the loss of support center, what would you do? We work from home. How would you do that? Well, we've been doing it for a while, so I don't think anybody really needs, like, am I going to have a 30-minute meeting just to build that step out? And then realize the journey is not over, right? So changes are going to happen. I remember talking to our finance group, and by the time I got approval to go into finance, and by the time I built out the plans, payroll just moved over to HR. It's like, yeah, I'll catch up next year, right? I know changes are going to happen. Delays are going to occur. We are in the retail business. Don't even bother talking to somebody around Christmas. And then things can always be added to the program or taken away. There are times that, again, like I said, 10 minutes before a meeting, I'm like, you know what? I just realized I got to start asking people another question, and this one doesn't matter. Click, click, done. I'm out. I just say, you know what? I'll figure it out. This program is being run by me. I'm just gonna roll with it, and it seemed to work out pretty well. But as far as just setting the course, right? Getting back on the right path. I know this is a little small, but these are some of the things. These are basically just everything that I'd ask in a BIA and a plan. I'll read this off because I know it's, like I said, very small. General info, I just asked for a description, the specific impact if that function was lost, and then any single points of failure. That is all also based from a risk kind of background, like trying to draw out those risks. And then I get into more specific. I just say, and more specifically, what is the customer impact, compliance and legal, financial, and then team member or operational impact. Those are the 4 categories, and I set RTO times for that. And then within the system, I built out a process rating or like a criticality rating. But the questions I ask there are just all yes or no questions. And honestly, in the first 2 categories, I can most of the time fill those out for them. I'll walk them through and I'll let them tell me, no, that doesn't sound right. But do you service customers? Would there be a systemic impact? Is this going to take out multiple things downstream? Can we still sell a ring? Can somebody walk into a store and buy a pair of earrings right now if your process was down? Can you work from home? And then the fun question is criticality to the business. That's a drop-down box. It's average, below average, above average, or one of the most critical. That's a little check the win test. But if they'll flat out tell you, no, we're below average, like you do not need us, that tells you a lot, right? And that question should line up with whatever your process rating is. And then from a plan, I go planning side, I say loss of workplace, loss of key personnel, loss of application, and loss of effort. Those are my 4 scenarios. And then within the plan, if anything came out in this general information section, like single points of failure, hey, we have one guy with one login account for whatever Bloomberg terminal or something like that, and we wouldn't be able to report on anything, or it would take us forever to report on anything if that guy wasn't around. Okay, that's probably a good thing to bring up. So I make sure to make a note of that and then bring that up when I'm talking to the executive leader. And then pre-fills items, right? Before I even go into the meeting, I already document out their scope. I already document out the overall, the call tree, any kind of preset steps after the meeting, and then the overall description. I already built out a description for each process. Why would I have them build out a separate plan description, right? It's one less box to fill out. I don't care. I'll just copy and paste and build out your plan description. But again, this is what I was talking about with the preset steps is, what do you do if the support center is lost? Well, my whole team works from home. We've been doing so for the last 2 years. I just copy and paste this in. Whatever team can work remote and does not need to have access to the support center to conduct its responsibilities. And then I give them 3 just general steps to follow, right? It goes a long way because if that's already filled in, they're like, wow, yeah, yep, that's about right. That sounds good. I'm probably better at writing a business continuity plan at this point than they are, I would hope. So why not give them a little help? So as far as going forward, one of the things that I know is definitely lacking, and that's a top initiative for us going forward, is now that we have a foundation in place, is building out an awareness campaign. Whether it be a newsletter, just monthly emails, anything, just to get our name out there. Getting a page on the intranet site, our company's intranet site. I mean, that's all on the docket, but there's only so much time in a day. Testing and quick hits. So one of the things that definitely happened, that happened throughout the company was that there was always a test of the EOC, right? The Emergency Operations Center and the Incident Command team, like from before. And it was always, hey, let's go out to the garage and set up tables. We had this like service garage on our campus. Let's go out to the garage and set up tables and have our little test, our tabletop test. That's the only test they ever really remember. And I'm not really going to do that anymore, right? We haven't been into the office since COVID, honestly. So the thing that we're going to push for is quick hit testing, right? So it's, okay, I know that in payroll, they said they'd use this system if, one of the other systems went down, or they would document it this way if one of the systems went down. Okay, do that from 9 until noon and let me know how it went, right? It's such a quick hit test. It's not that hard, not that stressful for me, not that stressful for them, but it's something that I can just kind of probe at throughout the organization. And then enhancing the BIA. Like I said, changes are always going to happen. It is what it is. So one of the things that we didn't build out in the system initially was connections between departments or reliance on other functions. That's one of the things that we're going to be building out. Just because how do you connect it if it's not there and documented? So I'll end on this is what state do you feel like your program is in? Are you on the right path? Do your people, do the people in your program feel like they are driving through a horrible state, or do they feel like they're driving through the first kind of state? Does anybody know can anybody guess where that is? Yes, here's a hint. That's my daughter holding a hot pink lobster. Oh, you follow me on Facebook. That's not fair. I don't. Yes, that's Acadia. Yes. So in Acadia National Park, there is a island that you can get to for exactly 3 hours twice a day when the tide goes out. You can walk across it, or as my wife found out when I was halfway through, and she goes, "Are you sure this is legal? You can drive on it." It is called Bar Island, and quite literally, this is not where you want your program to be. You can literally be stranded there. So I'll read you the sign. Warning, high tide will leave you stranded. You can safely cross the bar 1.5 hours before and after low tide. If stranded, the next low tide is in 9 hours. A water taxi may be hired for approximately, and then there's a screw over it. It may take over an hour to arrive. Right? So you don't want that so you don't want your program to be stranded, which is ultimately what Signet's was, because we didn't have the proper engagement, we weren't on the right path, and everybody felt like they were driving through the box. So there you go. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Anything? Yeah. What's up, Ben?
All said and done, how do you measure value back? Everything you deliver.
Right.
It's fantastic, by the way.
Value back to the business. So for us, I think it's how much, for me personally, I mean, we can report on it. We can, say, hey, this is how much progress. We do the typical reporting, but for me, it's just personally, it's more of that gut check of, okay, how many times are people actually coming to me? How many times are people involving me in conversations now that I didn't ask for? Meetings that, hey, we moved our distribution center. First person that, they invited to those meetings was myself now from a continuity standpoint and our director. How many times when something happened, did somebody come and request a document, data from our system? How many times is IT now saying, hey, can you send me that as a report, all of those RTO times you're gathering, right? That's helping us build from our DR side, right? So I look at it from that standpoint. Value back to the business, obviously, like I said, you can always report on all of that as well. Just, hey, we are now in a better position from a distribution standpoint, right? How many times have our discussions and what those other little risks, the things that I said, hey, here's our potential single point of failure. I listed that out on the bottom of the page. How many times did that get followed through and all of a sudden that issue got fixed? I can think of, just 3 off the top of my head right now, just major things that got fixed because we had that discussion. And I think that's where it's tying into our risk process as well, and our risk culture, is that our business continuity is drawing out those risks throughout the business as well that we're fixing. So that's how I measure it. I know it's kind of, again, it's a check the wind kind of thing, but yeah.
So I do have a lot of templates and things like that, but I almost constantly is there good resource for other types of templates, something that'll I can use to enhance my stuff?
Great question. I made it up as I went
Terrible
along.
answer.
So because I did the exact same thing. So that's interesting that you bring that up, because I sat there when I first started building this out, and I was like, I wish I had just like a script, right? A script of like, hey, if somebody says our whole group is cross-trained. Okay, what are the 5 most common steps that somebody could change a word or two and all of a sudden make it theirs, right? I just ended up kind of building it from scratch, and I have a Word document, and I just literally copy and paste. The minute they say cross-train, I go copy, paste, done.
My biggest challenge is nurses. I love them. When you talk to them, it's like, yeah, we go to paper. Okay, well, you haven't really used paper in 10 years. Do you really have those forms around?
Do you have paper?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, actually.
and if we do that, where are you gonna store those papers? Now you're talking about having PHI, or we're just gonna leave them on the counter, or you're gonna lock them up in your manager's office. I mean, how this is gonna work. There's so many pieces to this that people really aren't thinking about. And it's like, now you might go to paper for a few hours while your Epic system's down. What are you gonna do if you go to paper for 30 days? It's just completely different mindset.
So here's what I would do, right? That doesn't just mean you do whatever you want to. But I would literally go, okay, option nurses, most common answers. 1, go to paper. 2, I don't know. 3, right? And then just say, okay, if you go to paper, here's your first option, second option, and third option, right? And you copy and paste that in, and you say, okay, well, what would you do? And if they come up with another one that you've never heard before, great. But you pretty much know, hey, we're gonna have paper, and I'm going to put it in this filing cabinet, right? Or I am going to lock it up and have that be your steps and have it already written out. So then they go, oh, I never thought of that, right? And you're not trying to, in the meeting, kind of think through all of those. They're already written out, and it's going to guide that discussion, because if they see that step and they're like, I don't have a filing cabinet, and I don't have paper, and I don't have a pen, right? That right there they'll stop you in the middle of the meeting and go, that doesn't work. Okay, well, why doesn't it work? And then from there, how would you rewrite this step? Because it's obviously not working for you. So you kind of go from there. Yeah. Yes. Yes, sir, Edwin. It was this great company with this great guy named Edwin. Yeah, what's up, Edwin? Well, hey, thanks. Hopefully I didn't go long.
You're right on time. You're right on time. Woo.
Yeah.